Hello! We are nearing the midpoint for 2024, which naturally makes me start thinking about what are some of the best books that I've read so far this year, but also what haven't I read? What have I been meaning to read and just not had a chance to yet? And also, what are some new books that I'm not even aware of? So I really enjoy how different publications start bringing out different book lists at this time of year, highlighting their favorites, and one came out just recently from the New York Times. So I'm going to go through these several books that they've highlighted because here there are some books that I have read and some I've been meaning to read, and also some that I had not heard of before, but which I'm really interested in now. So starting off, there is a book which I think is not only the best book or one of the best books of this year, but of recent years, and that's Percival Everett's new novel, James, which is so refreshing and powerful, giving an account of some of the events of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn from Jim's point of view, but also showing new events and different events, because there are some sections of Mark Twain's novel where Jim isn't there, and this kind of fills in the gaps and expands upon it to give such a refreshing new perspective that is moving and in some parts quite humorous and playful, and other parts absolutely terrifying. And it is so intelligently done how it explores and expands upon his character and his relationship with Huck as Jim has escaped from slavery and left his family behind through necessity, and following their journey down the Mississippi River, and the different people that they encounter and events which they live through. And I was so wrapped up in this story, and I feel like revisiting Mark Twain's novel really added to the experience, even though I don't think it's absolutely necessary. You could just read like a summary of that novel before then getting to this new book, and it's not only giving a new perspective on this period of history, but also reconsidering the present and where we are in the world right now, through telling this story set in the past, using and giving a whole new refreshing perspective on one of the most iconic novels in American history. Good Material by Dolly Alderton. This is her second novel. It follows the life of a stand-up comedian who has experienced a breakup of a relationship which he finds really devastating. And so it follows this story in quite like a humorous way, but is also meant to be like really achingly relatable in different ways. I think this sounds like enjoyable and interesting, but probably isn't a book that I'm going to prioritize soon. So let me know if you think it's especially worth reading. Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. This is a novel which I just finished reading this week, and it was such an engaging and pleasurable and thought-provoking experience. It's so imaginative and playful in its narrative, following a young Iranian-American man who is a poet and a recovering alcoholic who has lost both of his parents, his mother, to quite tragic circumstances when her plane was shot down by the American government. And we follow him as he is still like in mourning for the loss of this mother he's never really personally known, and how he imagines different conversations both with her and with pop figures from popular culture, but also literary figures. And so it's really creative in how it handles this story, but there are lots of dramatic revelations as well. And I found him to be such a nuanced and complicated character that's very sympathetic in a way, and he's experienced a lot of difficult circumstances, and just being an Iranian American man understand living in America is difficult in itself, but he also has his own pretensions and contradictions, and so it really interrogates both his character in a really interesting way, but also the circumstances of modern day America. And yeah, what a clever and exciting novel. The Hunter by Tana French. This is a psychological thriller that's actually the second in a series following a retired police officer called Cal Hooper, who's retired and moved to a small town in Ireland to try to live a settled life, but ends up getting involved in different mysterious circumstances involving two men who have newly arrived in this small Irish town, but also trying to assist a teenager who's kind of wayward and trying to find their way in the world. So this does sound like an interesting story, but I would probably want to read the first book first before getting to this new novel, because I think Tanya French is a really great writer, but it's kind of the trouble with actually a number of books on this list that it feels like prior reading is required before getting to these new books. And that is the case with this next novel, Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange, which is a sequel to his previous book, There. And these are stories which consider the legacies of the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864, and the narrative moves between this past point and characters involved in this struggle, but also the near present and characters involved in modern day drama. So it's considering both American history and the plight of Native Americans in America today. And I have heard so many good things about both of these books, but I've shamefully never got around to reading There, but it's been on my shelf for ages, so I do want to read this before getting to Wandering Stars. Another book which has been sitting on my shelves ever since it came out earlier this year, but which I haven't got to reading yet, is Headshot by Rita Bullwinkle. And this is the story of 8 female boxers who enter this US tournament, and it follows them over the course of 2 days, and looking at the lives and histories of each young woman and their differences, and but also how they have this common drive to be the best boxer, and how this leads them into direct competition with each other, and it's meant to be very dramatic and funny and touching, and I've heard such good things about it that this is a story that I do hope to read soon. Beautyland by Marie-Helene Patino. This is a novel that, from the title of it and the cover, it's not a book that I would naturally be drawn to picking up, but then I read about the story, which really intrigued me, of a woman who is born believing that she is an alien, and she wants to convey information about her alien species and planet, and an alien's point of view of the world, which does really intrigue me and just sounds so weird. But also then I suddenly realized I've read a book by this author before. I read her previous novel, Parakeet, which is this kind of absurdist story about a woman who's about to be married, but it follows her very odd journey to the altar. And that book was so creative and disarming in different ways that it gave such a refreshing new perspective that, I'll be really intrigued to read this new novel. And then finally, on the New York Times list, there are a number of nonfiction book recommendations, which do sound really intriguing, though I'm probably more interested in getting to some of this fiction in these novels before reading this nonfiction. Although the very first book on the list, Knife by Salman Rushdie, his memoir about the attack attack that he sustained in recent years, where he lost sight in one of his eyes and was horribly wounded, and his account of this experience, but also reflecting on the dangers that writers face, and something that he has faced for many, many years. And so, yeah, this does sound like a really compelling account and story. And what I've read of Rushdie's fiction in the past hasn't been my favorite, but this does sound like an excellent new book. So let me know what you think of this New York Times list. Have you read any of these books? Are you interested in reading any of them now? And also, let me know what are some of your favorite books that if you have read so far this year. I would love to hear about that in the comments below. But I hope you have a good day and are reading good things, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.